Hello guys, Kozmic here, and today we are answering the age-old question. What is Lake? Lake is a narrative story-driven game made by Gamers, published by Whitethorn Digital. It's available on all platforms and it is 20 buckaroos. When I first saw Lake at the Future Game Show Awards, I was thinking, okay, this looks boring, but maybe there's something more to this table, right? Maybe there's something else here. And granted there is, and there is stuff that you could sink your teeth into, but unfortunately for Lake, this is the most boring game I played this year. It's also the most shallow game I played this year as well. This game might be called Lake, but it's shallower than a kiddie pool. First, let's talk about the story. It's 1986. We play as Meredith Weiss, a woman from the big city who hates her job, and decides to take a 2-week break in her hometown, Providence Oaks, where she reunites with some old friends, makes bonds with some new ones, all while replacing her father's job as a mailman while her parents are out of town. But while she's there, she puts herself in a dilemma where she wants to stay in Providence Oaks, return to the big city, or just do something completely different. Now, if that short summary of the game did not interest you, then you're not gonna like the story of Lake, and that to me is the biggest problem with the story. There really is nothing interesting going on most of the time. There are some characters and moments though I feel like could lead to something, but just end in duds. Like for example, there's this mail agency guy that comes to remove your coworker due to mail gambling. And this was the main point in the game. I was interested because this could lead to that coworker doing something drastic because these guys have been butting heads according to Meredith's father. You even get interrogated by the guy for your coworker's gambling habits, and I told the truth, but it just ends abruptly when this guy just gets his job back anyway, and the mail agency guy just leaves. There are more interesting storylines though, like with Meredith's childhood friend who is now a mom, who is taking over the neighborhood diner while also relighting her passion for music. This movie rental store owner who is trying to keep the doors open while also realizing that maybe being in Providence Oaks isn't for her. And this lumberjack who is trying to keep this construction company from destroying the woods of Providence Oaks so they can pave the way for apartments to be built there. These storylines have a lot more to bite into, and these were a highlight for me in this game. Though some characters were just not interesting at all, and the facial expression on people's faces had that Mass Effect Andromeda effect going on, just having no expression whatsoever. Overall, the story of Lake is very hit or miss. I think the story can be enjoyed in some parts, but will be very uninteresting in others. But what really kills the game for me is the gameplay. The gameplay of Lake is absolutely boring. If this is what real mailmen have to deal with, then I don't blame them for throwing my shit at the door like a damn football. The main gameplay loop involves around Meredith, delivering mail to different houses, while also interacting with the people of Providence Oaks. Now, have you ever played Mafia? And I mean like the OG one, not the remake. And remember that one mission where Tommy's just driving people to different areas in his taxi? Now imagine that, but for 4 hours. That is legit Lake's gameplay in a nutshell. Now, I know for some people, they might think that it's just relaxing driving around Providence Oaks, which, don't get me wrong, it can be enjoyable for some people, but for me, it becomes more of a drag than anything because there are moments in this game where there is something interesting to bite into, but then it just throws you back into delivering more mail, which wouldn't be such a boring part of the game if they gave something for the player to do while delivering mail, or maybe outside of delivering mail in general, because while Providence Oaks looks really nice, it feels lifeless most of the time, with only a few people walking around that you cannot interact with, and cars that have pretty bad AI. I feel like this game should have been something else rather than this open world sandbox. It should have been more like a point-and-click adventure similar in the veins of Life is Strange or Walking Dead, because the main focal point with those games is the story and the main device that pushes those games forward. But with Lake, the main device is the sandbox gameplay, and rather than pushing the game forward, it holds it back from going into second gear. In this game, you can also make choices like I stated earlier, but most of the time, I felt like my choices really didn't matter in the end, and there's really only two major choices that I would say that is game altering, which is which love interest do you choose, and do you stay in Providence Oaks or leave. There is other things I want to cover before we wrap up here, and that is there was a lot of glitches I ran into, such as cars merging, into one another and a bunch of graphical glitches as well. And my game time only lasted for 4 hours. And for 20 bucks, that's really short. So overall, Lake is very mid. And what really kills it for me is that gameplay loop. It really drags the game for me, and like I said, the story, while there is some interesting parts, is not enough to keep me engaged at all. But I do think these guys can tell stories though, and maybe with some tweaks to storytelling and changing their approach when it comes to gameplay, we might get something more engaging next time. But overall, is Lake worth it? The answer to that question is no. Not for $20. Anyway, this has been the Kozmic Man. Let me know what you guys think about Lake. Did you love it? Did you hate it? And let me know what I should cover next for what is. Stay classy, and peace everyone.